Why is a government that has so many economists at its helm struggling so badly to control the prices crisis? Dr. Amit Mitra, do you feel that the government has let the Aam Aadmi down when it comes to just the issue of prices?
Now, what has happened is, in the case of food, you've got a heightened situation of price rise. Whereas in the manufacturing sector, still price rise is reasonable because you've tightened the monetary policy, you've raised interest rates, so those who borrow from banks and take interest are responding. And they are going to go slow in terms of the process. So what is important here is Aam Aadmi does not consume yet large proportions of manufacturing, beginning to get into the white goods, etc. They consume basic foods.
And that's where, Sandeep, they find that the government has let them down when they go buy onions, buy tomatoes, buy other vegetables. They find that's where they need the government to deliver, and that's where they find the failing.
There's a triple play here. There's gangbuster GDP growth. There is real inflation, which is at 8.5%, which is more or less the same. And then you have an interest rate regime, which is higher than that. So all the gains have been frittered away in these last. And let me also add here that what Pranab Mukherjee did, what the finance minister did at the deepest hour of that global financial meltdown was a classic maneuver, and he managed to actually extricate the Indian economy out of what was a global crisis. Whether it was duty cuts, whether it was stimulating demand, whatever, he did that. But as I said, these last 12, 18 months, the Tower of Babel is such that everything else is forgotten. Only corruption remains.
You know, a lot of these young people sitting over here, Mr. Patel, and others watching on television will feel that increments in corporate India have come down. They're now getting 8, 10, 12%. That's about the level of inflation. So when you talk about how India is growing at 8.5%, most young people feel we're not the ones growing. And that's because the issue of prices is an issue the government has been unable to adequately deal with.
I agree that when prices of onions or potatoes or something which is of a daily nature consumption would affect everybody's psychology. But you see about onions, 15 days back, what was the situation? Now 15 days later, when it's a crop failure, I'm saying it could happen to any country in the world. Last year there was an issue of pulses. When the crop of pulses failed in India, India actually went out to the world market. The entire available pulses in the international market for free sale, or rather to sell to other countries, is about 5 million tons, of which India was alone going to buy 4 million tons. That shot naturally when somebody comes to buy 4 out of the 5 million available tons, it's going to create a price war in the international market. That led to a cascading effect back home. So I agree that we will have to address certain issues of more of concern to Aam Aadmi first, and that I think it's a perspective which we'll have to look at, and especially it is agriculture driven, because a large part of India, when I go to my constituency which is rural, the issues of Mehngai are completely different than the issues of price rise in an urban area, say in Delhi or Mumbai.
Do you think the government has failed entirely, partially, or do you think it's doing enough to tackle this mess?
Again, I think it's a little bit confusing when you lump all the different aspects of price rise together. If you look at manufactured goods or industrial goods, the base materials have actually all shot up, and they've shot up globally. Steel, copper, nickel, the whole lot of them have gone up, and they've continued to rise. I don't know how many people are aware in the audience of what's happened in the last 3 months to these prices. So this is a supply side issue. There is a supply constraint on the one hand, because our demands in India are high, and the second is global increase in raw materials, both including coal, of course,
and crude.
And crude. And this is having an impact. It has a multiplier impact on prices when they go beyond manufacturing to the consumer. What we have done in both our monetary and fiscal policy, which we have tightened, we've had the largest number of interest rate increases last year in the history of India. Now, the impact of that was it's actually curbed demand. It has not done much on the supply side. We do need to address the supply side. That is an issue. On the food, however, it is a much bigger issue, and it's a much longer term issue. We need to work on farm productivity.
Professor Chaudhary,